Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to start a new series. Hopefully this is the first in a long line of them, but if not, then this can be a standalone video. But I did go back and think about maybe some books that I didn't like so much, and maybe some books that I was really harsh about. And I'm not going to say that I feel bad about that. I don't. And I'm just going to speak for myself. But I do think that all too often I have a negative experience with something and then I go out of my way to not repeat that experience. If I don't like one book by an author, it's going to be really hard for me to willingly pick up another. I end up making some really broad, generalized opinions, or forming some really broad and generalized opinions off of what is sometimes a very narrow section of that author's presentation. I talked about this a little bit when I discussed reading The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. My intention for reading that book was to give Sally Thorne a second chance after hating 99% Mine. Likewise, today I'm going to talk about forcing myself to read books by another author that I wasn't super impressed with after reading one of their books. That author is Minka Kent. My first experience with that author was the book The Stillwater Girls, which I read as an ARC earlier in 2019. And boy, did I have some opinions about the Stillwater Girls. Around 70%, the book takes a total nosedive into ridiculousness, into crazy town, into what in the hell did I just read? I couldn't take this book seriously once the twist was revealed. Really, ugh. There were some very specific things about the Stillwater Girls that I was not pleased by. And none of those things was that it had a bad concept or that I didn't like the content. I actually really loved the concept of this book and was really digging the first half. I was harsh. I think it's my most disliked video on YouTube. I would have to go back and check. People were not happy with my rather honest and maybe harsh opinions. So I figured that would be a good way to start, or a good place to start, was to read some other work by Minka Kent and see if maybe, this was just a fluke. So I read two books. The first book that I read was called The Memory Watcher. This is a domestic thriller, and it came out in 2017. It was self-published, interestingly enough. 340-ish, 330 to 340 pages. The book is about a woman who has manufactured all of her circumstances in order to be able to stalk the family that adopted her daughter. So she stalks them on social media. She lives where she lives because it's close by them. Again, another really interesting concept. And The Memory Watcher was better developed. And I find that really intriguing because obviously The Stillwater Girls was not self-published, but The Memory Watcher was. So I'm not nearly as angry with The Memory Watcher as I was with The Stillwater Girls. A couple of things to note, though, is that The Memory Watcher also had a really far-fetched twist. I'm kind of sensing a pattern here with Minka Kent, and that opens up a bigger discussion about thriller novels or mystery novels in general and what appeals to different readers of those genres. For instance, the most rewarding reading experience for me when it comes to mystery and thriller is to be surprised by the big reveal but be able to look back at the book I've just read and say, oh, like, that's why this happened and that's why this happened. Like, realize the clues along the way that I missed, or the things along the way that I misinterpreted that threw me off, in order to surprise me by the actual reveal. Like, that's the most rewarding experience for me. On the other hand, I can recognize that there are mystery thriller readers out there that just want to be shocked. You know, who don't really want to think about it, who don't really want to play this game of cat and mouse, who are just reading because they enjoy the reading of the book and aren't trying to outsmart the author at every turn. Because the thing about the 2 Minka Kent thrillers or mysteries that I read is that there's no way in hell anyone is guessing the twist or the reveal of these books, because they are so ridiculously far-fetched that there's not a word of the book that prepares you or teases you or hints at the ultimate twist of these 2 novels. There's not. So it depends on what kind of reader one is. The story is about this woman who gave a child up for adoption and is stalking this family who adopted the child, but there's actually very little about the child. Like, this isn't about the child at all, which makes me question what the motives are of our main character. If we know so little about the child, like, the main character is stalking not the child, but the family of the child. So I thought that was kind of odd or inconsistent to the actual plot of the story. Also, there's a lot of interesting things that happen in this book. You know, we've got one character who's stalking a family, but within that family, we've got deception and lying and even some murder investigation things going on. Like, that family is dealing with a lot on top of not even knowing they have a stalker. So our main character's name, the one doing the stalking, is Autumn. And there's one of my favorite moments in a Big Bang Theory episode, is when Amy points out to Sheldon that Raiders of the Lost Ark would have been the exact same whether Indiana Jones is in the story or not. And interestingly enough, The Memory Watcher would have been exactly the same book whether our main character Autumn was in it or not. Autumn has no effect on this story. She has no effect on the outcome. Nothing. I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the Stillwater Girls. Actually, that's maybe not true. Like, I thought it had a little bit more going for it than the Stillwater Girls. Although I personally, as a reader, was really into the concept of the Stillwater Girls. So it was disappointing. It was disappointing to me. Whereas The Memory Watcher wasn't as disappointing to me, but again, I wasn't as invested. I don't feel like I was as invested in this book, and I'm not sure I'm the reader for Minka Kent. But I read another book by the author. Now, Minka Kent writes mystery thrillers under the name Minka Kent. However, she also writes contemporary romance novels under the name Winter Renshaw. So I figured, okay, maybe I should just go with romance and see if I like that better. So I picked up The Perfect Illusion by Winter Renshaw. This is about a woman who works for a tyrant and is just about to quit her job. She's just on the cusp of quitting her job. And I think she tells him, I'm quitting. And he says, wait a second, I need you to be my fake fiance. So it's a fake relationship trope, which I am there for every time. I really wanted to give myself as many opportunities to like this author's work as I could. So I went with a fake relationship novel. The idea is that he will pay her $5 million to pretend to be his fiance so that he doesn't have to marry this long time family friend, when in reality his motivations are slightly different. He just wants to parade a new woman around in front of this ex-girlfriend. He's a real Lola. Like, he's, not going down in history as my favorite romantic hero, that's for sure. On top of that, there's this weird twist in this story where our heroine, Maribel, is pregnant because she had a one-night stand. So she's pretending to be the fiance of her former boss, hiding from him the fact that she's pregnant. And so he's, unbeknownst to him, hiding from everyone else that she's pregnant. So there's a pregnancy, a hidden pregnancy inside of this fake relationship. Okay, well, let's make it even more complicated and outrageous by revealing, and this is a spoiler, so if you foresee yourself reading The Perfect Illusion, stop right now. But let's make it even more outrageous by revealing in the middle of the book, when everyone gets together, that the one night stand was the best friend of the guy paying her to be his fake fiance. So what? Wait a minute. What? So how do you get out of this situation? And there's a huge plot hole inside this book. Not only is this twist outrageous, but it breaks everything. It breaks it, because in order to be pregnant by someone who isn't your fake fiance, you would have had to have cheated on your fake fiance. So essentially, it looks like our main character cheated on her fiance with the fiance's best friend, but nobody acknowledges that part of it. Essentially, ladies and gentlemen, The Perfect Illusion is, again, hyperbolic in its complexity and its twists. I've kind of come to the conclusion, and again, I've given myself 3 books to do this with. So I've kind of come to the conclusion that Minka Kent / Winter Renshaw just goes really far. She is not the biggest proponent of realism. Hyperbolic is the sensationalized, and hyperbolic are the 2 words that kept popping in my mind when I was doing this little experiment. I mean, these twists are outrageous, these circumstances are outrageous, and here's the thing. Like, it works better in romance, I think, to have a highly sensationalized and mildly unbelievable book, because romance, in my opinion, is kind of like the left arm of fantasy. It might not take place in fantastical worlds. It might have names we know how to pronounce, and it might have, day-to-day circumstances that we ourselves have found ourselves in. But I mean, the whole idea behind romance is fantasy. And so if you want to be really crazy and out there, and you want your stories to kind of, romance is a better place to fit in the literary world, I think, than mystery thriller. Because, at least me personally, I don't want a lot of outlandish stuff in my mysteries and thrillers, because part of the mystery thriller experience is to have anticipation and to be excited and to experience some anxiety in what the outcome is. And if I know going in that this shit is not realistic, I'm not anxious about it. I don't, maybe that's my problem as a reader. Maybe that's not a writer's problem. Maybe that's a reader's problem. I'm willing to accept that. But in general, my conclusion is that I probably should not be reading books by this author. And I'm not even going to say they're bad. I'm just going to say that they're tailor-made for a very specific kind of reader. And one reader is not better than the other. I'm not saying anything like that. So if you like The Memory Watcher or The Perfect Illusion or Stillwater Girls, that's great. Nothing makes me happier than someone who loves to read books finding books that they love to read. I don't care what kind of book it is. And I don't care what kind of reader you are. If that's happening for you, then I'm happy. I am very happy for you. I am very happy for booktube in general. But that's just not what's happening here for me. So I gave it a shot. Coming up in the future, I've also done the same sort of experiment with Alessandra Torre. So I hope to be talking about her books soon and the ones that I tried by her. So stay tuned for that. I encourage everyone out there who maybe didn't like their first experience with a certain author to give it another go. Always be willing to try again. Always be optimistic that a better experience awaits you around the corner. If you like this idea and you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comment section below or hit that thumbs up. That's how I'll know that this is a good idea. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon.